It was a day like no other on the set of The View, as two legendary actors, Clint Eastwood and Robert De Niro, were invited to share their thoughts on Hollywood, politics, and the shifting tides of American culture. Both men came with long, iconic careers behind them and opinions forged from decades in the industry. Initially, everything seemed calm. They exchanged pleasantries, shared a few laughs about their past films, and the hosts were delighted to have two such powerhouses in the same room. But as the discussion turned toward more serious subjects like the role of politics in film and society, the mood started to shift. Eastwood, ever the stoic and reserved figure, voiced his concerns about Hollywood becoming too politically driven. De Niro, known for his outspoken political beliefs, pushed back. What began as a casual discussion quickly intensified into something more personal. The audience felt the tension, the air thick with anticipation as both men refused to back down, each word more loaded than the last. As the dialogue escalated, Eastwood maintained a calm but firm stance, emphasizing that art should remain independent of political agendas. De Niro interrupted, asserting that silence in the face of injustice is complicity. That triggered a spark. Eastwood retorted that constantly politicizing cinema alienates audiences and dilutes storytelling. De Niro leaned in, challenging Eastwood's notion, saying art reflects life and the world is inherently political. Eastwood's eyes narrowed. He wasn't one for shouting, but his words cut sharp like a razor. The audience was stunned. The co-hosts tried to mediate, but it was too late. Both men were entrenched in their views, unwilling to yield. Eastwood warned that people are tired of being lectured, that filmgoers want to escape and not be judged. De Niro countered with passion, claiming it's a moral obligation to use influence for good. Sparks flew. The hosts looked visibly nervous. The debate had veered off course into raw territory neither had planned. De Niro raised his voice, accusing Eastwood of being out of touch with the current generation. He said the world had changed, and those in power who refuse to evolve are part of the problem. Eastwood didn't flinch. He said he'd seen decades of political swings, fads, and hollow movements, and he wasn't impressed by noise over nuance. The studio audience was on the edge of their seats. The hosts tried to pivot the topic, but both actors ignored the cue. De Niro said if people like Eastwood stayed quiet, injustice would thrive. Eastwood calmly responded that shouting louder doesn't make someone right. His tone was cold and cutting. Then, with a dramatic pause, Eastwood turned directly toward De Niro and said, "You've turned acting into activism. I'm not here for that." The air went silent. De Niro looked furious, ready to retort, but Eastwood had already started rising from his seat. That gesture alone was enough to shake the entire room. Clint Eastwood stood, his towering presence commanding the entire stage. The hosts and producers didn't know what to do. Robert De Niro followed suit, rising to his feet as well, unwilling to be overshadowed. The two legends now faced each other not just in words but in presence. The tension felt like a scene from a dramatic film. Eastwood looked around the set and said, "This isn't a place for real conversation. This is just noise." The co-hosts tried to calm him down, suggesting they take a break. But Eastwood had made up his mind. He pointed at De Niro and said, "You're not here to talk. You're here to preach." De Niro shot back, saying, "And you're just here to stay comfortable." The producers rushed in as it became clear this wasn't just a heated debate, it was a full-blown clash of values. Eastwood turned, walked toward the stage exit, and with one final glance at De Niro, said, "I don't need this circus." He walked out, leaving shock and silence behind. The moment Eastwood exited, the energy in the room dropped. De Niro stood there, visibly shaking with frustration, still trying to make his point. But the audience wasn't reacting the way he expected. Some clapped for Eastwood, others sat in stunned silence. The show abruptly cut to commercial. Backstage, producers scrambled, trying to understand what had just happened. Eastwood's team had already left the premises. De Niro, now alone on stage, returned to his seat, clearly annoyed but trying to hold composure. The co-hosts apologized to the viewers, calling it an unplanned emotional moment. But everyone knew this would be the moment to dominate headlines. Social media erupted. Clips of Eastwood walking off and De Niro's responses were shared millions of times. It wasn't just entertainment anymore, it had become a cultural moment. Commentators from both sides of the political spectrum chimed in, interpreting the event through their own lens, turning the argument into a national talking point. News anchors debated who was right. Was Eastwood brave for walking away from what he saw as a futile shouting match? Or was De Niro right for challenging what he believed was silence in the face of moral failure? Both camps were passionate. Hashtags like Team Eastwood and Stand with De Niro trended on Twitter. Think pieces emerged within hours, analyzing everything from body language to political implications. Late-night hosts joked about it, but even in their humor, the weight of the moment was clear. It wasn't just about two actors. It was about two visions of America, one that seeks unity through restraint and tradition, and another that demands confrontation and progress at any cost. Meanwhile, neither Eastwood nor De Niro made immediate public statements. Fans were divided. Some said Eastwood was classy. Others said he ran away. Some said De Niro was brave, others called him self-righteous. Everyone was watching and waiting to see what either would say next. 3 days later, Clint Eastwood released a brief statement through his spokesperson. It read, "Mr. Eastwood values respectful discourse but refuses to participate in spectacles disguised as conversations. He remains committed to storytelling that uplifts rather than divides." The statement was short, but powerful. De Niro responded later that evening in an exclusive interview, where he said, "I don't regret a thing. We have a platform, and I intend to use mine. If that makes people uncomfortable, good." The firestorm only grew. Podcasts dissected the words, cable panels debated intentions. Some fellow actors defended Eastwood, while others stood with De Niro. It became clear that this moment had touched something deeper than showbiz. It became a mirror for a divided society. Two icons, representing two philosophies, had clashed in front of the nation, and now the public had to decide what it meant. Behind the scenes, insiders from the set of The View revealed more details. They said tension between the actors had existed before the show even began. According to crew members, De Niro had expressed concerns that Eastwood might downplay important issues. Eastwood, on the other hand, felt the show would be used as a platform to ambush him. Producers tried to keep them separated before going live, but the friction was obvious. The crew sensed something was going to happen, or they just didn't expect it to go that far. Staff members described the atmosphere as combustible. Some even said it felt like watching two worlds colliding. The View's team later released a statement apologizing to fans but also saying that open conversations are sometimes messy. But the damage or impact was done. Everyone knew that episode would be one for the history books. Weeks passed, and the media coverage continued. Clint Eastwood returned to his film work, directing a historical drama. Robert De Niro appeared at several rallies, speaking out about political causes he believed in. Their careers were unaffected professionally, but their public personas had taken on new dimensions. Eastwood was now a symbol of silent strength and conservative resilience, while De Niro was seen as a champion of activist truth-telling. Fans on both sides dug deeper into their past interviews, trying to validate why they stood with one or the other. Clips resurfaced. Old quotes were reanalyzed. The View's ratings soared from the buzz, but even they admitted they hadn't expected such a moment to go viral worldwide. It had become more than just a celebrity spa, it was a cultural flashpoint. Behind the scenes, both actors reflected on the moment. Eastwood, in a rare interview, said he didn't enjoy confrontation but wouldn't allow himself to be shouted over. He said, "Sometimes the strongest thing a man can do is walk away." De Niro, asked again about the clash, said, "You can't walk away from truth. If you do, you're part of the lie." It was clear the rift wasn't going to heal soon, but perhaps that wasn't the point. Their disagreement symbolized a deeper conversation America needed to have. And while they might never appear on a stage together again, their legacy from that one episode of The View would live on, and not because of what was said, but because of what it revealed. Memes, parodies, and even mock reenactments began circulating online. Saturday Night Live aired a skit about the moment, exaggerating the drama for laughs, but the underlying message remained potent. Younger audiences began asking more questions about who Eastwood and De Niro were beyond their movies. People studied their careers, their beliefs, and their public personas. In a way, the clash reinvigorated interest in their work. But more importantly, it started conversations in homes, classrooms, and communities. People debated over dinner tables whether walking away was strength or weakness, whether raising your voice was courage or arrogance. The incident had become a national case study in communication, disagreement, and dignity. In the end, the episode was not just about Clint Eastwood or Robert De Niro. It was about how we handle conflict, how we listen or don't to opposing viewpoints. Whether you agreed with Eastwood's quiet walkout or De Niro's passionate stand, there was something to learn from both. In a world increasingly divided by ideology, perhaps the most important lesson wasn't who was righter but how we respond when someone challenges us. The clash reminded everyone that even giants can disagree, and how they do so says as much about them as the words they speak. The View may have witnessed one of the most intense celebrity showdowns, but it also gave us something rare, an honest, unscripted moment that held a mirror to us all.